Go ahead.
Yeah, well, the point I was making really is about Pike, because one of the first things that you encounter whenever you confront Freemasons, they try to marginalize Albert Pike. But I was out in California, and these Masons invited me down to the lodge, and I said, okay, I'll come down for a day and let them show me around. But as soon as I got there, I walked in, and they have their ceremonial hall and these big double doors and whatnot, and right out front, there's this gigantic bronze bust of Albert Pike. And I just looked at him kind of innocently, and I said, hey, guys, what's the deal with Pike? Why is he so influential? And he said, well, he designed all the rituals and ceremonies of the Scottish Rite. And so this is why I say he's interwoven in Masonry. The Masons have fought for years to keep his statue there in Washington, D.C., and we show you the statue. In fact, when we were filming it for Riddles in Stone, Part 2 in the series, we were confronted by a police officer who turned out to be a Mason. And he was concerned why we were filming it. And thankfully, my guide there in Washington, D.C. was also a Washington, D.C. police officer, great guy. And he sort of interceded for me. But then we got into a big conversation with him, and he was trying to support and promote Albert Pike. The reason people in D.C. want that statue taken down is because Pike is one of the original founders of the Ku Klux Klan.
Yeah, the founder, Confederate general. Now, let's expand on that. Here's a police officer, and I've been to the park. We videoed it as well for an upcoming film, close to the Supreme Court. It's a public park, and this Mason who's for freedom of speech, he's coming over trying to keep you from filming it. It's just unbelievable. The Masonry of George Washington clearly is very different from the Masonry we have today.
Yeah, that's what Washington was, because what was happening, from what I've been able to gather from the history there, is you had the radicalized form of Masonry over in Europe involved with the French Revolution, and these guys were bloodthirsty.
The Jacobins.
The Jacobins were bloodthirsty, and they were into just slaughtering people.
And raping children and serious devil worship, Hellfire Club type stuff, or even worse. And go ahead.
Yeah, that's exactly it. They were just extremely radical, and Washington opposed them. He did not agree with what they were doing, and one of their ambassadors, Citizen Genet, we talk about him in Part 2, but Genet came over, and a lot of people don't realize these guys stirred up all kinds of, they were trying to have another revolution.
Yeah, let's be clear. Washington had people burning his effigy all over the country. The French Masons came in and tried to they wanted to change the days to 10 days a week. They wanted to break up families. It's the same crap called liberalism today, where it's unbelievable. People don't know what happened in France.
No, and they don't realize how you had different people. You had some people like Jefferson. Jefferson supported the French Revolution. Washington did not. There was a division among them. Jefferson had some pretty dark comments. When he heard about all the bloodletting, he said, well, it's better that every nation be reduced to a single Adam and Eve than that the French Revolution fail. So he tried to justify the bloodletting. But other founders, like Washington, simply did not approve of it. And at one point, this guy, Citizen Genet, stirred up a crowd in Philadelphia, and they tried to, because Washington would not support the French Revolution, and they tried to drag Washington out of his house to try and force him to support the French Revolution. And we give the quote from John Adams in the film, but these are parts of American history that have been lost, and they're not taught in our school book. But they're documented. You can find the letters in the Library of Congress. But these guys were radicals, and this was the whole reason for the Alien and Sedition Act. It was to put these guys down because they were trying to subvert the country. And it's the reason why Washington, in his farewell address, had said to the American people that we ought not to seek revolution as the continual solution to whatever problems we're facing with the government. that we couldn't have this ongoing series of...
Because in truth, the Luciferians wanted a violent revolution to destroy everything in their way, the family, religion, to make themselves the gods of a totally tyrannical world government based in the United States. And that's what your series exposes.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what they wanted. They wanted total chaos, the breaking down of every boundary. And it's why there are quotes, there are great quotes from Washington where he says, that any nation that casts off the rules of order and right that heaven itself has ordained cannot be expected to prosper. And the reason he's saying that is because he's responding to what was going on in France at the time, that they wanted to destroy everything, the family unit, the calendar, any kind of law and order. And
they tried it in France and killed close to 20% of the population. That isn't known. The Red Terror, Lenin said it was part 2 of what happened in France. The whole communist revolution, the Red Star. These people mean business.
Yeah, Hitler had said that his Nazi revolution was the exact counterpart of the French Revolution. It was in the French Revolution that they had launched the first depopulation program, where they literally broke out a map and went down to the different towns and regions in France and were determined that they were going to depopulate France so that the people who survived would be able to find work and get food and so on. And they had planned to kill like 9 million people. And then what happened was they were slaughtering people, and they only killed about 300,000 or so. But the bodies kept piling up, and they didn't know what to do with them. And I believe, it's one of my theories, that when Hitler came up with his final solution program, part of what the Nazis were doing was trying to find a fast, efficient way to kill people and dispose of the bodies.
Well, they said they were going to take over the planet and region by region depopulate, putting things in the water to sterilize it first, taking children, and they would die of a medical problem. This has all been declassified. That is what eco-science... That's what I want to bring up today, then, because we're talking about history. When you look at the environmentalists, the eugenicists, the Maurice Strongs, I know this is coming and you're moving through history in your series. When you look at eco-science and the eugenicist, when you look at the 1996 UN Biological Diversity Assessment, we have this in my film Road to Tyranny. This, you can get this at the UN website. We'll put that on screen, that devil snake thing. We're playing some of the video for radio listeners at prisonplanet.tv from one of his films, one of the latest films. But the issue is the eugenicist and the UN document 1996 says the ancient world kept down population with wars, famine, and human sacrifice. We must reinstitute human sacrifice in the capitals and make the bloodletting be part of society. I mean, this is official UN law, says they want temples and blood sacrifice. Now, that sounds insane. I'm not the insane one saying it. This is official UN policy. Can you talk about the modern people we're dealing with?
Yeah, I mean, because we constantly get questions from people who will ask about, the reality of concentration camps and depopulation programs and things like that, and are these things real and whatnot. And one of the things that I point to, I'll just say, look at what UN representatives and guys who have written books on this, what they talk about. They admit that some 170 to 200 million people were slaughtered by corrupt governments just in the 20th century.
That's conservative. If you count Stalin, Hitler, Mao, Lenin, Pol Pot, Fidel Castro, and others, it's over 200 mil.
Yeah, and when you've got, and again, I usually go with the conservative numbers to try and convince people.
Well, that's it. They always get control of a country, though, and just start killing.
Exactly. And I say to people, why do you think they're doing this? If there's no depopulation program, why are they killing 200 million people? They're doing it because it's part of an agenda, and it's a global agenda. I mean, I can't necessarily make all the connections in every country, but in some of the big ways, especially when you trace it from these radical groups, and these things are admitted, like going back to France for a minute, the French Revolution, all of this is admitted by Dr. James Billington in his book, Fire in the Minds of Men, that we quote in the series. Billington is not a conspiracy writer. He's the Librarian of Congress. He's as official and historian as you can get, and his book is quoted by President George W. Bush in 2005. And Bush admitted in his presidential speech, he says, we have lit a fire as well, a fire in the minds of men. You know, it warms those who feel its power. It burns those who fight its progress. Think about those words from the President of the United States. You fight with the progress of this fire that we've set up, you're going to get burned. That's what he's saying. And he says, one day this untamed fire of freedom will reach the darkest corners of our world.
But instead, when you really look at the light they're bringing, it's a dark light. It's evil. It kills. It destroys. They openly state in all of these books and publications that they're going to eradicate the family and make us all slaves. But that's the freedom. It's the freedom for the elite to kill the unwashed, to kill the uninitiated, the profane. We are animals to be slaughtered at their pleasure. It's a giant party land, a giant world of raping, murder, death, slaughter for them in their black uniforms as they march forward.